For the Glory is proudly powered by Melanie Dairies.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of For the Glory, an athlete empowerment production series proudly brought to you by the Wattle Nest. My name is Rachel Condos-Fields and I'm excited to introduce you to another one of Australia's great sporting legends as we share her story, celebrate her success and embrace the power of sport as a true connector within our community. Joining me again today is our Australian track and field athlete and For the Glory co-host, Nana Awasu. Welcome back, Nana.
Thank you for having me again, Rachel. We're about to talk to an incredible lady.
A lady that has already made a legacy in her sport. We're pleased to welcome to the studio Melanie Kawa, a rugby union player. Welcome, Mel.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Nana, and just what a privilege it is to be here. What a great platform you are setting for a lot of athletes out there, so congratulations.
No, thank you for being here and sharing your story because I think more people need to hear it. How does your rugby season look like? How do you balance education, work and a season being an elite athlete?
Wow, so yeah, story of my life since I found the sport back in 2006. I guess you just do it for the love. Like if you're really passionate about something, I'd call rugby union maybe the greatest hobby of my life because I turned it into just, something social to something that I really wanted to pursue every hour outside of like my career. So yeah, look, 40-hour work weeks plus, anywhere upwards of about 15 to 20 hours of training and stuff like that when I'm at the competitive level, when I'm playing competitive rugby, is a lot. And so I guess it just comes down to time management and really good communication. So when I have, really good employers that respect that, women really want to pursue high performance and elite sport as well as career, they give you a little bit of balance as long as you're open about what your goals are and dreams are. So, yeah, full on, not much time for much else. So, yeah, the study part obviously comes in. I did it while I was playing rugby in university. I played at rugby at a university, so I was in a good place to study. And as soon as class was over, get straight to training. So, but have juggled that, yeah, for the last nearly 18 years.
Let's just go back a little bit and get a real feel for your journey. So you were born in Papua New Guinea, but it wasn't until you were in Australia that you discovered rugby, is that right?
That's right, and to my dad's sort of confusion, in Papua New Guinea rugby league's like the national sport, so yeah. He always wondered why did you go all the way over there to play rugby union? But yeah, I found it in university, so quite late. I was 21, so before that playing soccer and netball. Netball was pretty much the competitive sport that I was playing until, I found a friend in university said, why don't you try rugby union? Never really understood the sport and that, but once I went down there, it took one training session to just blow my mind at how wonderful a game it is, how strategic, and the physicality of it actually won me over. So from going from non-contact netball to collision sport rugby, yeah, that's kind of how I fell in love with it.
I was interested because you used the word hobby in your introduction and talked about it being a hobby, and you will always be remembered as playing a role in getting it more than a hobby, so that some girls now are fortunate enough to draw a little bit of income from the sport. How important was that for you and what does that mean for the next generation?
I'm incredibly proud and I never set out to be like that advocate for the sport. I just loved the sport and fell in love with it, and particularly, for the social side of it. It was the people, it was this fabric of people that is an international game, meaning I could rock up on one of my ex-teammates' couches in Europe or something because they remember what it was like to play. So it's a fantastic game, first of all. And so after, playing it and just realising that I was playing with these, amazing women who I'd never had women's sports role models like that. I was always just watching men players and trying to emulate their game. And then when I started playing it, I realised, oh no, I actually love and I'm inspired by these women. So once I found that out, I'm like, why not? Why aren't these women sort of getting the same value or valued, in society the same way as the men? for being just as, in my mind, just as talented and as skillful and as dedicated, and I couldn't see the difference. So after a few years of playing socially, I really just turned and I said, I'm going to try and push to be competitive. And not only that, my goal was to just try and play my best rugby around the world with other women and raise that profile. And it's sort of throughout that journey, I don't know why I took it on, but I just wouldn't shut up about it. So now when I look back at it, you know, these tiny incremental changes over the last, 17, 18 years, it has come such a long way, but with such a long way yet to go, where I still think it could be, this spectator, brilliant sport that inspires new generations to not only enjoy the sport for whatever it is. You don't have to be a professional sports athlete if you want, but you could be. Any girl picking up the sport, picking up a rugby ball today, could one day make a living and play around the world if she wanted to.
You have been phenomenal and a real champion of change, and congratulations. I don't think you really understand the impact you've had, and in years to come you're going to look back and be even prouder than what you feel today, so well done. I think it was you that I heard in an interview once, you were talking about the need for these female athletes in particular to get paid isn't just to cover bills and maintain a life, it's actually to get better at the sport and get those results in a high performance environment. Have you seen that impact?
Yeah, 100%. It makes so much sense to me that if you invest and you give the women all the tools and support that you give to the men, that they will no doubt get better and go to new heights that you actually had sort of ceiling them off at. You may have capped them off and said, oh, this is about as good as they'll get skill-wise. You don't know that because you've never invested. So I used to feel really disheartened when they would measure women's sport against men's sport with the complete difference of investment. And now, I'll take rugby sevens as one example. Within the space of about 5 to 10 years, the skill level and the spectatorship is indistinguishable. The same people looking, they just want to go and watch a rugby game. Doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman playing. And I'm blown away at how quickly women have been able to do that for themselves. But I'm not surprised because I actually knew, and I've known all along, how hard they work. And if anything, for them to emulate a men's game while, studying and working and having children and all these other roles, for them to even be anywhere close to what, professional men's sport is, I think you can already see what a great investment that is. For me, it's a no-brainer. I just wish I could make that clearer to people. But I think the future looks bright in terms of recognising that return on investment. And unfortunately, that's what it kind of comes down to. If you can sell a bottom dollar line saying like, oh yeah, if you put in now, you'll get to say you were the first ones to invest when, this league went pro. So I think in that sense, the opportunities are endless, and that's my pitch point to, for me, it was the Melbourne Rebels, but my pitch was, if you get in now, you'll be here when it's selling out stadiums and things.
You've talked about that you studied, you've worked through your whole career. How important is education and being an elite athlete to you? Yeah, so
one thing I'm kind of the silver lining of not having the opportunity straight out of school or that is that you will have to eventually you have to live your life. You have to base your life around something where if professionalism didn't come around, I would still be a professional career woman. So yeah, studying, luckily at a couple of universities, I was able to get a couple of degrees, get my master's degree. And it would be sort of in between rugby sabbaticals that I'd do that. So yeah, in between my studies, I was able to go overseas a couple of times and play like that. So as I said, I think I really owe it to, all women who really want to pursue it, and as well as those people that back them in. And that's their families that will do anything, look after the kids. It's their workplaces that say, oh yeah, you need to go to training. All right, for 30 minutes you can leave early. It's those people that have backed you in to support you all that way. They really help because otherwise it's so tough. For me, playing, for example, in the Super W with the Melbourne Rebels, I know that my partner won't see me for close to 4 months, as in like for 5 nights a week I'll probably be out, and he'll have to make dinner and he won't see me and he'll be gone before I wake up in the morning. So it's those kind of sacrifices that have held us together. And when a professional team comes to you and says they're willing to support you with, anything, like not even just the pay, but we're willing to give you free access to gym so you don't have to go and pay for it yourself, or we're willing to give you some food after training because we know that you won't get home for another hour and a half and you'll be eating at 11:30 at night. It's those things where those are things that they can change. They're minute, maybe they don't look big in the scheme of things, but those little sort of value add things that you can do for an athlete, they change a thing, and then they make it all worthwhile. So sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, signing up for a new season, do I want to do this again for like a 6-month commitment with pre-season and everything? And then you're like, yeah, okay, I'll do it.
For the glory, we say.
Yeah,
The glory.
You're so passionate about women's sport and you've played for nearly 2 decades. What more do you think can be done for women in rugby?
That's a really good question, actually. Sometimes it might sound like we're just singing out for money and we're just like, pay us this and pay us that. Really not. I think something that every single spectator and person that can do at home is watch women's sport, for one, and that also comes from when it's available to watch, So if it was on TV, I guarantee that someone may watch it. The best thing I seen was we had COVID here in Melbourne, and it just happened that the Olympics were on at the same time, and it forced people to sort of sit down and then you had millions of new eyes on women's sport that was happening. So imagine if that was just something that was available and on TV. So you'll have a Super Rugby game, but then straight after that was, here's the women's Super Rugby. I guarantee you that people would start watching. So a little bit more exposure from the higher ups, bigger than my level or whatever, to start arranging for that, so that the exposure is there. And then you're flicking through the channel, and then it doesn't matter whether you're invested in the sport or something, but you might learn someone's name in basketball, women's basketball, or you might learn a track and field athlete story like this show right here. And then you're like, oh, okay. So then all of a sudden it's not so foreign, and it's not so, it's not so, I don't know about women's sports and things. So I think exposure is a good one. But even the average person reading the paper, if you just clock what's going on in women's skiing or something, and that way you break down this barrier of complete saturation of men's sport, and you pay attention. And then sure enough, there'll be some event going, like a rugby game perhaps at Amy Park or something, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I could take my family and watch that, because why not?
Mel, we could sit here and talk to you for hours, and I think it's fair to say we need a lot more Mels in our life and a lot more Mels around sport, and we congratulate you on the change that you have made and keep lobbying for that change. But before we wrap up, Nana likes to ask our guests 2 sporting trivia questions.
Ooh.
I don't think they'll be rugby focused, but we'll see what she's got in store.
All right.
I think you might know the first one, as you used to be a netball player, but what is the nickname we give the Australian women's netball team?
The nickname, or are they not the Diamonds?
Yes. Yes. Well done. And my last question, let's go 2 for 2. Who is the first Australian to win the US Masters in golf?
Oh, okay. So it could have been someone from ages ago. I'm thinking, this is not my answer yet, but it may be a Greg Norman, or maybe Scott, what's his name?
You're on the ball.
You're on the ball.
You are on it. Come on.
Starts with A.
Adam Scott.
Yeah!
I'll take
I'm
that.
surprised I knew the answer. I'm pretty proud of myself.
2 from 2. I knew you had it in you.
I just wanted to thank Melanie for joining us in studio today. We've had an absolute ball, and I hope that her stories have inspired you to spend more time investing in sport and watching our girls on the big screen. And Nana, I'm sure you'll agree, it was a beautiful session.
Yes, it was so good to see an athlete using their voice to empower women in sport, and I hope everyone who's watching the Wattle Nest gets a bit inspired to get in front of the TV and watch our girls playing any sport.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So that does conclude this episode of For the Glory. Be sure to please tune in next time as we continue to share stories from our sporting world. Until next time, goodbye.